Welcome to the deep dive.
Great to be here.
So today we're looking into something quite disturbing, really, an online mystery.
Yeah, it's about this individual people online started calling Smart School Boy 9.
Right. And we've been digging through, various online posts, threads, mostly Reddit, some Instagram finds.
And the goal here, I think, is to try and piece together what this is actually about. What's the core phenomenon?
And maybe what it tells us about, the online world we're all in.
Definitely. Because the basic situation is, well, it involves a man, reportedly in his 40s.
Posing online as a schoolboy, which is immediately a huge red flag, obviously.
A massive one. And it's not just the persona, it's the actual content that was found.
Talk about that content. It was pretty unsettling.
Yeah. We're talking about AI-edited photos. Images of children manipulated in ways that are, frankly, really grotesque.
Yeah. And then there were the captions.
Right. Captions written deliberately to sound like a kid. Simple things like, year 7 math class.
Just trying to mimic that voice.
Exactly. And on top of that, poetry as well.
Poetry.
Yeah, stuff seemingly written from the viewpoint of a 12-year-old. It all paints this incredibly unsettling picture.
It really does. So that's what we want to unpack in this deep dive, right? What is actually going on here?
What kind of behavior are we seeing? And what are maybe the wider implications?
Okay, so let's get into how this whole thing surfaced. Our sources point to a Reddit user. Let's call her Maria for simplicity.
Right, and she apparently stumbled across a couple of Instagram accounts.
Truthsticks11 was one.
And the other was Smart Schoolboy 9.
And the really weird part was how similar the content was between these two profiles, wasn't it?
Yeah, that overlap was key. The same kind of disturbing photo edits, those childlike captions popping up again and again.
It didn't feel like separate things.
No, definitely not random or a coincidence. It strongly suggested, one person, one source behind both accounts.
Which immediately makes you ask, okay, who is this person creating this stuff?
And that's when the videos started showing up.
Ah, the videos. Right. Tell us about those.
There were short clips, apparently, featuring a man described as pale, middle-aged.
Dressed in a school uniform.
Dressed in a school uniform, yeah. Filming himself in these, deliberately staged scenes.
Like performing school life?
Kind of. Things like walking to class or similar mundane stuff. Just bizarre.
And this individual was identified, David.
Identified as David. And what's really quite alarming is that this pattern, this behavior, it apparently wasn't new.
No, the reports suggest it's been going on for 2 decades.
20 years, yeah. That's what the sources indicate.
Wow. 20 years. That really changes the perspective, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It means this online stuff isn't just some sudden recent thing. It's potentially just the latest way this long-term preoccupation has manifested.
You have to wonder how it evolved over that time.
And what was happening before Instagram. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, here's where it gets even more specific and honestly kind of stranger.
Okay.
The online discussions we looked at mentioned a connection to London.
Okay, London specifically.
Yeah, and there were comments found, supposedly from David, on local news sites.
What kind of comments?
He was asking for photos of a specific playground, one that was demolished back in the year 2000.
Huh. That's very precise. A demolished playground from 2000.
Right, such an odd specific request. What does that even suggest?
Well, that kind of intense focus points towards a fixation, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Likely tied to a very specific time, probably childhood. His own, maybe.
It seems plausible. And then there was the poem.
Ah, yes, the poem submitted to a charity.
Under the name Stefanie Stansfield, age 12.
Right, but the content itself.
The content gave it away. It referenced TV shows from the 1990s.
Things a 12-year-old today would have, zero connection with, most likely.
Exactly. It just screams adult trying to sound like a kid, but getting the details wrong. It sort of betrays their actual age,
Absolutely. It reinforces that whole picture.
And then things take an even darker turn when you look at what other users were saying online. Reports of actual real-world behavior.
Okay, this is where it gets really concerning.
Yeah. Claims that this person, David, was seen following children in their neighborhoods.
Following children.
And even hiding behind trees. There was one detail that was particularly chilling. A mirrored lunchbox.
A mirrored lunchbox. Wow. These are serious claims being made.
Very serious. Coming from people in these online communities clearly worried.
Now, we always have to be a bit careful with anecdotal reports, right?
Right.
Until they're verified.
Of course.
But seeing those kinds of offline allegations alongside the really disturbing online stuff, it's deeply troubling.
That lunchbox detail is particularly unsettling. It sounds like something designed for, what? Surreptitious observation.
It certainly raises that possibility. And the sources mention that local police were apparently informed by parents.
But deemed him harmless, despite the concerns.
That's what's reported. It really makes you question how these kinds of online and potential offline behaviors are assessed for risk, doesn't it?
It really does. What's also fascinating, maybe contradictory even, is this reported split in his online presence.
How so?
Well, while he had these really disturbing Instagram accounts,
Yeah.
the sources also say his Facebook posts were apparently normal, coherent even.
Okay, that's a really important wrinkle. Coherent Facebook posts.
It suggests a level of awareness, maybe. It complicates just writing it off as one simple thing.
Completely. That contrast is critical.
Yeah.
It stops you from just slapping an easy label on it.
Right. If he can post coherently on Facebook, it implies he knows what kind of stuff he's putting on Instagram.
Which then brings you right back to motivation, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Is he deliberately creating this disturbing material? Fully aware.
Or is it like some kind of deep psychological issue happening alongside that awareness? How can someone present so differently?
It's a major question. Are we seeing predatory intent masked sometimes, or something else entirely? Or, like you said earlier, maybe a mix?
And then adding to the whole mystery, the accounts just vanished.
Poof.
Yeah.
Gone relatively quickly, according to the report.
Which feels like an attempt to cover tracks, maybe.
Could be. But, as the sources point out, the internet doesn't always forget, does it?
No. That digital footprint, the archives, they probably still exist somewhere. Someone likely saved things.
Almost certainly.
Yeah.
And this whole situation,
Yeah.
it's probably not unique, sadly.
You mean there are likely others doing similar things?
The sources suggest that, that this might be part of a broader, darker pattern online that we're only just starting to really grapple with and understand.
Okay, so let's try and pull the main threads together from this deep dive. We've looked at these disturbing profiles. Smart Schoolboy 9, Truth Sticks 11.
The videos of David, this middle-aged man in the school uniform.
And this concerning history, stretching back potentially 2 decades.
We noted the strange fixation that demolished Playground from 2000.
The poem under the fake child's name referencing the 90s.
And those really troubling reports of alleged real-world behavior following kids, the mirrored lunchbox.
And crucially, as we just discussed, that ambiguity about his reasons.
Yeah, the stark difference between the coherent Facebook stuff and the incredibly disturbing Instagram content. Predator, mental health crisis, both. We just don't know for sure.
And then the accounts disappearing adds another layer of complexity to tracking and dealing with this kind of thing.
Absolutely.
So this really leaves us and leaves you listening with a pretty unsettling question, doesn't it? What is the internet's role here?
Good question.
On the one hand, it's the place where this stuff happens, where it can be found like that Reddit user discovering it.
Right, it brings it to light in a way.
But does it also somehow fail? Does it fail to stop these patterns developing over such long periods? 20 years is a long time.
It seems like online communities sometimes act as like informal investigators, piecing things together.
Yeah, but the fact this apparently went on for so long, it does raise serious questions about whether current platforms or even law enforcement responses are effective enough.
How good are we collectively at intervening?
Exactly. This case really highlights those tricky links between what someone does online and the potential real-world risks.
It forces you to think hard about how we understand and respond to people who create these kinds of disturbing online worlds.
What does it mean for society having these digital spaces where this can happen?
And how do we get better at spotting the harm and maybe preventing it without, overreaching? It's a tough balance.
A really tough balance. Okay, one final, very important point for you, the listener.
Yes, absolutely crucial.
If any of this sounds familiar, if you recognize the name Smart Schoolboy 9 or the individual David described here, or if you have any information at all that could be relevant,
Please don't rely on online forums. Contact your local law enforcement, your local police authorities, immediately.
this is the kind of situation that needs proper official attention and intervention.
Definitely. Please report any relevant information you might have.